Right there, John Leeper, the killer of Big Heart. This is where John Ruby is buried. You saw the picture a while ago. He's the one that talked to Mr. Underwood that talked to Collins. This is in the wrong place. I made a mistake. And I didn't want to have to scan something else and change the dot. My daughter got so tickled at me because I'm kind of incompetent with this stuff. She said, "Dad, what are all these titles?" One of them said, "Red Dot Map." Well, that was clued me in. I knew what I talked about. This should be right here. And what happened right there is where the heart stopped to eat something. Maybe I just ought to tell that little raw story. After they left Cave and Rock, wandered around, killed several more people, they stayed over a place called Canoe Creek, which is in Henderson County. Everybody was watching out for them. And they started coming our way. John Ruby, when he was 17, said he saw the Harps pass at his father's house, whose name was Peter Ruby, and he was in competition with John Gordon to become Hopkins County's first surveyor. He lost out. Mr. Gordon got the job. Well, it said Peter Ruby lived west of Seabury on a place called Graves Creek. So I found Graves Creek west of Seabury. I thought, well, Peter Ruby lived right there, and that's where John Ruby saw the Harps pass. But even more intriguing, there's a little church right there, and it's called Petersburg. I thought, that might have come from Peter Ruby. See, I like that kind of stuff. I'm trying to figure it out. And sometimes you can never be sure. But it sure is fun to find out. Good, I'm glad you found it out. Changed the channel, wouldn't know what I was doing. Okay. So I started calling people. You know, did you ever hear where those steeple murders took place? And I'll tell you why I did that. Thanksgiving Day of 1979 at my mom and dad's house. You know, we're all home for Thanksgiving. I had an uncle named Durwood Veazey, my dad's older brother. And before long we were talking history, and of course I got off on the Harps, no doubt. And Uncle Durwood said, well, Henry Trice said the Harps killed a woman and a baby up at Nantstown. I said, what? Because I knew where Nantstown was. Now it's known as Roscoe Veazey Road, just before you cross the Webster County line on 630. I said, really? He said, yep, that's what he said. So I started calling people. Did you ever hear, I called Roland Gooch. Some of you remember Roland, or who he was. I called Eugene Nance. And he's like me, it took a long time for us to talk. Because we both got the disease. And everybody I'd called in that area, they had heard that story. And I said, you know where the murder site was? And they said, well, Rose, it's down there by what they used to call the bullpen, where the Trice and the Brown land come together. There's an old pond back there. And it's back behind that pond, they say. Well, they say that. Finally, I went down in the country and I found somebody said, y'all talk to Junior Jones. And Judy Carver was here, but she's not. This is some of her kinfolk. So I went to see Junior Jones, his wife Betty. Talked to them, and Junior took me different places. And he said, you know, Betty's a Tompkins. And said her ancestor was the one where they ate dinner. You remember that story? The Harps came in claiming to be Methodist preachers. I would say Big Baptist because I'm a Methodist. they claimed to be Methodist preachers. And said, you know, you people need to watch out for the Harps. They're around here somewhere. Well, Mr. Tompkins he was a wealthy man evidently. I think he had like 40 slaves around there. And so the Harps decided they better leave things alone. But they were still keeping up their pretense. And they said, listen, we don't want anything to happen to you. So Mr. Tompkins said, well, I ain't got much gunpowder. And Big Heart poured some out, gave it to him. And a few days later, that's the powder that killed Big Heart. But at any rate, They took me across the road, just down the road just a little bit, to where the Hopkins place was. We visited with some people there, and they said, yep, they say he rode out of here chasing the harps on a yellow mare. It's an old home place, and I can go to it right now. See, it tickled me because this is like 3 or 4 miles from where I live, and this is close to you all. As my teacher, Mr. Atkins, coined, all history is local. It can all come down and be local to you. So he took me around, he showed me where the Hopkins Cemetery was, where the guy who fell on singing a harp after him. But what I wanted to find was John Ruby's grave, the source for Mr. Underwood, who talked to Mr. Collins, who put it in his famous History of Kentucky. Well, I think I know, so Junior and I walked around all afternoon and we couldn't find it. Well, I was frustrated. I don't know, I can't remember who called me, but somebody called me and said, listen, Jack Wilson said, when you want to know where Ruby Cemetery is, just call him. And when you want to see where that murder site is, just call him. Hello, Jack. That was almost exactly 34 years ago today. It was April the 8th, 1980. See, it's important to me, so I remember that day. Whoop. Okay, this is Jack Wilson. He lives on Roscoe Beasy Road, which at that time was called the Nancedown Road. His wife, Beulah. So Jack said, well, come on, we'll go. So we went out behind his house and walked down through the woods. Went way on down through there. And there's little side deals that mean something to me that I'll never figure out, but it's interesting anyway. As we walked down in there, we had to cross what he called a branch, a little ditch. So I was crossing. He said, back there is what they call the Ned Thicket. And I said, what? He said, the Ned Thicket. He said, after the Civil War, the Strums and the Trices, and I'll get to that, their slaves were freed, but they had an old, aged slave named Ned, and he didn't have anywhere to go. And he said, can I live back here in a little house back here? And they said, sure. So he did, and he died. And somewhere in the Ned Thicket, Ned's buried. You know, just little things like that mean a lot to me, and I'll probably never find it. Probably never look for it. But we walked on, we crossed the branch, and we walked down a long woods, and we got down there, and we got back to where the woods started again. And he said, this is what they used to call the bullpen. I said, ah! But that's what the people had told me. He said, see that old pond right there? I said, yeah. So we walked over, and he said, it was right there, right back in there. I said, all right, Jack, that was in 1799. I don't mean to doubt your word, but you know, oral history, you have to be careful. How do you know? He said, Tyler Brown told me that's where it was when I worked for him in 1916. Look, sorry, Junior. You're gonna get ducked. This is Tyler Brown. And doesn't really have anything to do with it, but his wife was a Beasy. Moscow sister. So I did a little figuring. Jack Wilson told me, and I'm telling you, Jack Wilson told me 34 years ago where the spot was. Tyler Brown showed him in 1916. Well, how did he know? His father would have heard about it in 1870 or close to you. That's known for many years where that was. If you or something big that's close to you, you know that. Well, when the Browns got there, it had just been less than 20 years since it happened. Okay? I really like that oral history. Also, the Strums were tied in because they married into the Browns. And so I tried to trace that ownership back with deeds. Mr. Strum got it from Sharon Harris's I know his great Richard Case. Great, got it in 1838. Got the farm that they said the murder happened on. Mr. Case got it from a guy named Key, who got it from a man named Richard R. Bailey. I didn't have a deed, but I had a will, 1824, Richard R. Bailey. And in his will, he left some ground to his son-in-law, and he said, the land I got from John Leeper. I said, who? John Leeper. That's the guy that killed Macaja Hart. Big Heart. I never thank you. Thank you, paperwork. Did you get up here and help me? I'm going to put you in charge. This is Mr.
I can
Ebenezer.
promote it for you from here if you want me to. You just tell me when.
Okay. I'll wink at you or not. Mr. Strum bought the land in 1838. Everybody in his family, he heard about the murder site because he bought the property. He married into his kids married into the Browns, went all the way back to 1817. By oral history and descent, I was pretty well sure. By the way, this was the equivalent of our glamour shots today. Because, David Sharp, where are you? Okay. David, in 1980, I was in Charlie Forker's house. He took a picture off the wall, took the picture that was showing out, and that was underneath. That was Charlie's great-great-grandfather. It's Eugene Nance's great-grandfather. So, this picture was on the porch last year at the Brown House. Eugene Nance, the guy that's like me, likes to talk too much maybe, has the daguerreotype of this fellow, who's his great-grandfather. And Eugene still owns property that descended from him. The daguerreotype has got a little few more warps and wrinkles and stuff. This is the equivalent of a glamour shot in those days. But the daguerreotype that this was made from looks like it was probably made about 1860. So those are valuable things. At the Rolling Goose sale, about 1988, after I'd already figured all this out, or thought I did, I saw two little daguerreotypes on the table. One of them was Mr. Strum. The other one was his son-in-law, poor Billy Brown, whose house we went to. So I went to the lady that was administrator, Iola Brown. I said, Iola, did you say, oh, granddaddy and great-granddaddy. Snatched them up. I might have been better off if I just paid for them and took them. But Eugene had them. Because I don't know what happened to them. But at any rate, when I got into that family, I was able to stretch it on back. Well, you know, that's all well and good, and you can almost say you figured something out. Donnie, you got it.
Are you ready?
Let me see where I am. Might have a picture lined up wrong. Go to. Okay. I got lucky. This was luck. But if you persevere, and a lot of you know this, if you persevere in doing things, not just history, but anything, if you persevere, luck will come to you quicker than it will when somebody gives up. Right? Give me that thing. What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get you where you're supposed to be.
One more. Another way. One more. Right.
There you go.
Okay. I kept one.